Hey everybody. So the French Open starting off with some fireworks thanks to Naomi Osaka saying that she is not going to do any press. And so it fuels a big debate. Should she be defaulted or not? I'm on a live stream. My mom is here. If she wants to come and do a live stream, you want to come do a live stream, Mom?
No, thank you.
No, okay. All right. So here's the big debate. Should Naomi Osaka be defaulted from the French Open for not agreeing to do press? This is a huge question, and I have mixed emotions about it personally. I feel that it's been there so long. The press has been there so long, and they have made so many stars. They have made so many stars, but at the same time, they're pretty annoying. The press can be very annoying. I have actually been lucky enough to sit on some press conferences where I got a press pass to the Cincinnati Open. And so you get to see all these tennis players being interviewed. And it is like a broken record to where you keep getting the same questions over and over and over again that you don't want to answer. And so I certainly see her side of it. But I guess the real question is this a necessary part of the job, of her duties? Is she required to do this, or should it just be all about her tennis? And Naomi is one of the biggest stars in the world in tennis right now. She's almost even kind of lately been surpassing Serena when it comes to sponsorship and attention, and certainly been the best player, the best female player over the last couple of years. And the media, I have felt when I see her get into press conferences, they've been pretty nice to her. Like, the press seems to really love Naomi Osaka, and she seems to do very well in the interviews. She seems to do very well, seems to be very likable, kids back and forth with the press. So I think that this could really end up really shooting her in the foot because she's had such a great relationship with the press. I don't think she's going to be able to get out of, not dealing with the press. Why not just interview the winner, says Fear Wolf Brewery. I mean, so that's the whole thing. You got to take the good with the bad. So we're on live stream right now, and somebody asked a good question. Why not just interview the winner? Because first of all, the press, they want all sides of the story, and depending on how you look at it, the press can be evil. They want the headline. They want to see somebody. Make no mistake about it. They want to see somebody cry on the podium. They want to see somebody get angry and have an outburst or say something outrageous. So that's where I think this is coming from with Naomi, is she feels vulnerable when she goes up there. She wants to have a lot of confidence going into the tournament, and the press does not make her feel confident. They make her feel unsure of herself. And her sister kind of alluded to that. We'll go into this in a couple minutes, but her sister kind of alluded that she is feeling weak and vulnerable on the clay, and that people saying that she's not good on clay makes her feel worse about her chances. So she doesn't want to deal with that. That's really what this is all about with the mental health stuff. So, yeah. So I think that this is a big reason. Can you guys hold on 1 second? Having some technical difficulties with my dog and my mom as we're doing this press conference. So this press conference debate. So anyway, let's see. I don't see her side of it at all. Speaking to the media and promoting the sport is part of the job. Yeah, I mean, it's been part of the job. So yeah, I want to hear what you guys think. Is this something that she should be defaulted for or not? Is the press a necessary part of tennis? I have a different side of it. I see both sides. I do see that the press, when they ask you questions, they're trying to needle you. They're trying to get a reaction out of you. good and bad. They want to get the good and the bad and the ugly. That's what they want to do. So they want to celebrate you when you're up, and they want you to come in and talk about how happy you are. They also want to see your vulnerable side and push the buttons a little bit. We know that that's what the media does in all aspects of life, and certainly it does that in sports as well. And that's really what this is about for Naomi. Naomi does not want to deal with anything getting into her head about how she might not be good on clay. She wants to give herself, and this is just not my opinion. We'll go into Naomi's sister's comments, but what this is all about, she talked about mental health, but what she meant for herself is she feels very vulnerable on the clay. She hasn't performed well on the clay, and she doesn't want to go into press conferences when she's trying to win the French Open, answering a bunch of questions about how she's not good on clay. That's her fear, is that it's going to wreck her confidence playing at the French Open, and she'd rather just block out all distractions. That's her argument. The French Open's argument, which is a very good argument, is like, hey, we've reached out to you. We've asked you, Naomi, how can we make this better for you? We heard your statement. We reached out to you multiple times asking, how can we make this better for you? And you didn't even come back and give us any kind of input on how we can make this better for you. But you're going to have to do the press, because then it becomes, which it absolutely does, guys, it starts to become an unfair advantage if you can decide, well, I'm just not going to do the press. I'm going to just accept the fines because I have so much money that you can find me whatever you want. And then she even kind of like put a spin on it, like, I hope you take your money and give it to mental health, which I think, is a little bit, I can't even come up with a word for it, but it's kind of like, oh, you're trying to have your cake and eat it too. You're trying to the spin back on the French Open when you're the one not doing your duty. You're the one not doing your duty here, Naomi. And that's what the French Open is saying. It's like, look, if you don't do the press conferences, we might have to default you, because it's not fair to the other players that you're skipping the hard questions, the easy questions, the time commitment that it takes, the mental energy that it does take. It is part of the tournament. It's part of the tournament to do this, and it's how we promote the sport. But on the other hand, what's ironic about it, by her not doing the press conferences, the French Open is probably getting more press than they would have gotten at this point in the tournament. So by her not speaking to the press, tennis is actually getting more attention right now by Naomi Osaka saying, I'm not going to talk to the press. So that's what's interesting. But I don't think it's fair overall to all the players for her to make this stand unilaterally and say, I'm not doing it, and you can just fine me. I think she's really forcing the hand of the tournament to say, okay, well, if you're going to continue to do this, we're going to fine you maybe 2 or 3 more times. We're going to beg you. And by maybe match 4, that's it. You're done. I think that's what they're going to have to do. I think they have no choice. So should Naomi Osaka be defaulted? My answer to this, even though I see her side, is I think she should be defaulted, guys. I think Naomi Osaka, I'm sure she's going to get warned, maybe, because the French Open does not want her out of the tournament. She's a big draw. They want her in the tournament. They would love her to go as far as they can, but they can't let her set this precedent, right? I mean, this has not ever even been debated. This is kind of out of nowhere. So, if we're going to go into a new world of how interviews are done, it certainly can't be decided in the next several days. And if you let Naomi Osaka play this entire tournament, you're going to let this be decided in the next week. It will be done. If Naomi Osaka gets away with this, then what's going to happen is that more players are going to say, well, damn, I don't want to do it either then. If she got away with it, I'm not doing it either. So if you let her get away with this, then tennis is going to move into a new age, and a lot of sports would actually move into a new age of how press is done and what's expected of the players if you let her get away with this. So if the French U.S. Open, all of sports is basically not ready to get rid of the press, then you're going to have to default her. But the question really then becomes, how important is the press? How good or bad is the press for sports? How good are they at their job? Really, I personally think that the people who interview and do these interviews in the press conferences do a terrible job. It's cringy. A lot of them don't know tennis, and really, even to their defense, how good of questions can you ask about a match? There's only maybe 3 or 4 questions you could ask after a match, and then it starts to become redundant. Then every question after that is just redundant. No matter how good an interviewer you are, if you're going to talk just about the match, after 3 or 4 questions, there's not much more to talk about. And so these things drag out 10, 15, 20 minutes long when really they could and should be just 5 minutes. So, I see the side of press as we keep moving forward with technology and social media, of them not really being necessary. Would it not be more interesting if, this is my long-term, my short-term solution to this, just so I'm clear, my short-term solution to this is that I think Naomi Osaka should be defaulted. For her to unilaterally make this decision and say, deal with it, fine me, so be it, and I'm just going to keep playing because I can afford to pay the fines, that is not fair to the rest of the field. And it is forcing all these tournaments and all of sports into a corner to where you've got to make a decision of the press is no longer important to us, or it is. So if the press at this point is still vital to sports, you have to default Naomi Osaka. Now, long term, I think it might be more interesting is if you have all these just like rooms, like these little confessional rooms. You have the phone camera set up. It's set to like the Roland Garros social media page, and it's mandatory, win or lose, that you've got to be in the room and you've got to talk to the camera for 2 minutes about your match. You can go longer if you want. You can talk longer if you want. But I think that would be kind of cool. And then maybe you can also decide if you want to make a statement to social media or if you want to go live. Maybe you want to go live and have the people ask you questions. So you can go like live on YouTube or live on Instagram or whatever. But you have a choice, because I imagine the people can be just as brutal, if not more brutal than the press. They'd be unfiltered. So they could maybe, if you had a bad loss or you lost your temper, they might be brutal. So I would give the player a choice. Put them in a room. It's going to go straight to the social media of whoever is running the tournament. Then all the press can grab the clips, and you might find a lot more interesting, candid, authentic feelings about your match, about the match, than the media will ever get out of you, because the media is coming after you. You know that they are sharks, that they are pariah, that they want to get you. So you have to go in there in a defensive mode, because you know that the media is not there to protect you. They are there to exploit you. And that's where I do see Naomi Osaka's side of it, especially when she is saying, look, I don't want to go into these press conferences being asked about how comfortable was I on the clay today. We know you don't really like clay that much. What did you think of your match? That's going to get into her head, and she does not want that. Okay, let's see some statements here. This is the first time I think Naomi has done something wrong. A big fan otherwise. Tennis is getting more attention in a bad way. That's another question, Diego. That's a good point. But is it getting more attention in a bad way? Is there such thing as bad press? That's another debate. Like, it's getting more attention. There's more eyeballs on tennis, and I'm not so sure if that's a bad thing. Lots of times the only people who really talk about tennis is totally obsessed people like us. MA fan, but the rules should be applied consistently to all players, whether it's Naomi or anyone else. That's what I agree. Tim, so we're live if you're watching the replay. Tim just mentioned, he's a fan, and that the rules should be applied consistently to all players. And if you let Naomi Osaka get away with this, it isn't fair to the other players. It just isn't. It isn't fair to the other big players like Serena Williams, who might say, well, I don't like the press either, but I'm here doing it. Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, and then the lower ranked players who have to go in there. They lose a lot more than Naomi Osaka, and they always go in there and do their press, and they have to mostly answer questions. Most people who play Naomi have to go do the press and ask about, isn't Naomi so awesome? Isn't she so much better than you? What was it like to play Naomi Osaka? Well, that's going to hurt their confidence too, isn't it? So it's not fair, for the tournament and long term. Think about all the players who have to play Rafa and Roger, and all they have to do is you can bet after they played them, the whole press conference is what is it like to play somebody who's superior to you and that you'll never, ever match up to? How do you think that messes with your mind? Okay. So if they've got to do it, Naomi's got to do it. And if she's not going to do it, she has to be defaulted. Naomi earns $55 million, $5 million on the court, $50 million from partnerships and endorsements. When her endorsement money dries up, she'll gladly welcome the press. Yeah, and that's a great point. Is she makes so much money, and really, she makes so much money by being a media darling. That's what's kind of going to hurt her long term. Is Naomi has been a media darling. And even I think it was, was it Indian Wells? There was some tournament where she decided that she wasn't going to play. She was doing a protest. And it seemed like the press kind of had her back. So the press for the most part has been good to her. They've been very good to her, better than they've been to a lot of players. Tennis is not the NFL nor the NBA. Tennis cannot survive without the media, period. That's another question. Can tennis or any sport survive without the press, without the media talking about you? Can they survive? Actually, that's a good point. The NFL, the NBA, they couldn't survive without the media, and they get most of the press coverage. If you turn on ESPN, Stephen A. Smith, for the most part, 350 days out of the year, maybe there's just a couple of days where he talks about it, but he's not going to talk about tennis at all. The mainstream media who covers sports, like in ESPN, they're going to be covering football, baseball, basketball, and they're almost forced to talk about tennis for 5 minutes. So, we need the press, it seems like. We don't know if we could just survive on social media alone. Maybe we could, but, shooing away the press is a dangerous roll of the dice for tennis that does not get much press as it is. All right, here's another one. Players should follow the tournament system in place. I agree. I think at this point, if you're going to eventually fade, just like, here's one thing, guys. Is it right? Is it fair that at the Australian Open that they phased out the lines callers, right? And long term, people were not at all. Patrick McEnroe, the press, the media, they didn't care at all that overnight, all these people who had decided to be umpires and line judges with their life and spent a lot of their money, right? They spent a lot of their money. They didn't care at all that a technology had come along that basically make lines people and referees obsolete. They're like, it's a better system. The players like it better. So therefore, we don't need lines people anymore. I see long term that all line calling is going to be automated. Well, if all the players get together and they decide, hey, we have social media, we like it better, the press is not necessary. We can go on and we can give a better press conference. We can deliver a better product by talking to our phone than any interviewer is ever going to do. And they pull it off. And it, in fact, turns out to be more entertaining than the press, and people like it better. Well, then should these press conferences exist? That could be obsolete overnight. But I think it can't be done in a unilateral fashion like Naomi is doing. Maybe it's opening a debate, and long term, they will decide if the press is going to survive or not. Because really, the press conferences, to be honest, guys, they suck. They're not very good. They're not very creative. And really, if you're just there to ask questions about the match, there's not many more questions you can ask than 2 or 3, 4 questions. Everything after that is a waste of time. It's redundant. It becomes uncomfortable. I watch a lot of the full press conferences because I am just a tennis nerd. So I can tell you that after 3 or 5 minutes of watching a press conference, the questions are extremely redundant, stupid. The players, it's awkward. It gets really awkward. It sucks. It sucks. So long term, maybe it's better that the players go into a room and they bring out their phone. For this tournament, Naomi Osaka should be defaulted. Naomi Osaka should be defaulted. You cannot decide on your own that you're not going to do press and that just find me because I have more money than anybody else in the tournament. And then it becomes an unfair advantage. And then you do, like it or not, Naomi, you become a diva. You become a diva if you're like, I'm not doing it. Screw it. I've got the money. Everybody else has to do it. Someone who has worked their butt off their whole life to get in the tournament, they can't afford to just be giving away $15,000 every match. They can't afford to do that. So yeah, it's not fair. Let's see here. So I'm just going to come here and read some more. Tennis Channel pointed out that Osaka could have done this quietly. She could have chose to make this issue. She chose to make, she actually chose. That's right. She did this in a way to where she just blew it up. She didn't go behind the scenes. She didn't say that she's having issues. She didn't say that, hey, I don't have confidence on clay. I'm sure the media probably would have agreed. I'm sure if she went behind the scenes and she went to the French Open and she said, look, I just don't want any questions about if I'm good or bad on clay. I guarantee you they would have, because the big stars can pull this kind of stuff, I guarantee you they would have said, okay, that's fine. We won't do it. Toss her out for CPL years. I don't know, a couple years. I don't know. Toss her out for a couple years. There are some great matches that generate great post-match questions, and there are mundane ones which don't. How does one know up front? Well, you don't know. Mark Davis, 100%. The U.S. Open is going to do electronic line calling this year. Yeah, and when I saw that, guys, I saw the Australian Open this year. This is a comment from Christopher Pollock. I saw the Australian Open this year, and they didn't have the lines people, and I got sad because I knew right away before Patrick McEnroe and Chris Fowler and all those people even opened their mouth, I knew right away that if they pulled it off, I'm like, someday there will be no lines people. And I thought about, first of all, I like the lines people. I like the controversy. I like a bad call now and then or a close call. That's part of the fun part of the game to me, is to see the umpires and the player engaged, and a little bit of controversy isn't terrible. And also thinking about all the people who have gone through intense training, all the travel, all the commitment, all the sacrifices that they've done to become a lines person, and overnight no one cared. And the press, who now is whining about Naomi Osaka, they didn't care either. They didn't have the people. I'm sure Patrick McEnroe, Chris Fowler, I bet you they know some of the umpires personally, some of the lines people personally. They didn't care at all. They did not care at all. They're like, the players like it better, so therefore let's just go with that. So the players, if you ask them, hey, would you rather go in a room with a phone and just tell us what you think about your match for 2 or 5 minutes versus going into a press conference? Which one would you pick? I bet you more players would pick this over going into a press conference. And really, it might be better. So long term, Naomi Osaka might have opened up a can of worms that the press is going to have to deal with. Who's going to win this? Let's see. Aaron Oak says, yes, I like that idea. She is not meant for this part of the mental game. If she can't play the rest or even come up with a solution, she's done. She can take her millions and keep making political moves. Well, Rosita, that's interesting. But I mean, obviously Naomi Osaka, she does appear at times to be a delicate little flower. She's definitely quirky and you know, weak in some regards, but in other regards, she has proven that, you know, she can go out there against Serena and beat her on the biggest stage in the world. I mean, she's proven more than any of the other ladies that besides Serena Williams, she has been the toughest, mentally tough tennis player over the last 10 years, because every time one of the women win a Grand Slam title, so you can make a huge list, they end up never winning again. So Naomi Osaka has proven that she has some sort of resilience, mental toughness, talent for winning big matches, because she's proven over and over again that she can win Grand Slam titles. So she's not too weak for this sport, and she's good for this sport. And even us all talking about it, whether you like it or not, is good for tennis. This is good that we're talking about this. Whether Naomi Osaka is right or not, I don't really know. My opinion is she should be defaulted, but at the same time, this is good for tennis. Sorry, it just is good for tennis. We're talking about it. Probably ESPN is talking about it when they wouldn't even have talked about the French Open yet. Do you know what she has chosen to do? Do you know what I guess if she doesn't like a question, don't answer it. That's my buddy Mark Davis. It's part of a player's contract to do the pressers. That's right. It's in their contract. She needs to do this if she wants to continue. She's doing this to raise awareness for players' mental health. It's something really important, not talked about. Okay, Aaron says she needs to do this for players' mental health. I think she does. There was who's the basketball player who was playing with LeBron James on Cleveland, and now I think he's with Brooklyn. I don't know where he is, but she put one of his posts up. So she's making a statement, but then on the other hand, she is being self-serving. She's kind of using that as like an excuse for her not wanting to answer about being weak on clay. So she's thinking about how I feel. I don't want to be asked about how I play on clay. That's going to ruin my confidence. I might lose early. So these are all her selfish thoughts. And then she's wrapping it into this broader issue of mental health and talking about how, you know, she sees people break down in pressers and it's just not right and all that kind of thing. But it really came from a place of self-preservation, that she wants to do well on the clay and she doesn't want to answer questions about her not being good on clay. That's where this is coming from. They shouldn't be required to do them. Short answer is yes. Sandy says short answer is yes. Press conferences are part of the game. That's right. For now, they're part of the game. You know, that's another question, guys. That's a long-term question. In 10 years, do we need the press? Do we need the press to hold these opinions after matches? Or can the players do it better? I mean, can you imagine Nick Kyrgios after he loses the match unfiltered? You know, if you made it mandatory that you have to talk for 5 minutes, but then, you know, the players get so much power, they're like, I'm not even going to talk for 5 minutes. I'll talk for 1 minute. And then somebody go, well, I'm not even going to, I'll talk for 10 seconds, or I'll just take a selfie. So it is a slippery slope if you allow them to get away with this. I don't think the sport is ready for this right now. I think in the short term, if Naomi is going to pull this power play, she needs to be defaulted. As a member of the press, you can ask the uncomfortable questions. It's the job of the reporter. Yes, the questions should be germane to the match, but difficult questions need to be asked. That is true. I mean, I agree. And, you know, look, players throughout the years, they've been able to deal with this. They know it's part of the game. The press has given us some of our most memorable moments by a player getting angry with the press. We like that. Whether we say by laughing with the press, by crying with the press. But make no mistake about it, I'm not a big fan of the press. I am not a big fan of the press. If you look at the press in all areas of life, you know, they're just there to make the buck. They're there to get a hot headline. They are there to use you. They are there to use you and push your buttons. That's what they do. I'm talking about you, the person watching this, and the people involved in the story, and the people that they're selling the story to. They're just using everybody. They're lots of times it does not come from a good place. So I personally am not a big fan of the press, but it is part of the overall system that I think right now still needs to be respected, still needs to be held intact. And Naomi Osaka, if you're not going to go to the press, you have to be prepared. If you feel this strongly about it, you have to be prepared to be defaulted. If you're prepared to get fined, you have to be prepared to get defaulted if you feel this strongly about it. And don't whine about getting defaulted. You know, you've been given every opportunity now to backtrack and go do your press. So if you get defaulted, she shouldn't whine about it. Disagree. Why would it be good for tennis to talk about defaulter? Yeah, and Gary, if she gets defaulted, that will be another thing that's actually good for tennis. It will, if Naomi Osaka gets defaulted, it will be a major story, and tennis will get more coverage. I was listening to Fox Sports Radio, and they are talking about this issue exactly. So it is good for tennis. You guys are on here listening to me right now. It's good for tennis. People are interested in this topic. Cancel all press conferences, somebody says. She brings in a lot of views to tennis, whether you like it or not. She just made a stupid mistake. Yeah, and Naomi Osaka, I mean, overall, I like her, but she does actually do some really stupid things. So how would she get default to be good for tennis? Because people would talk about it. It would be good for tennis if Naomi Osaka got defaulted, because this would be the story of the. If Naomi Osaka gets defaulted, this would be a big, big story. And people would talk about the French Open. And then maybe people would start paying attention to the other matches. I don't know. But I just know whenever you're talking about something that goes outside of our little sphere. I mean, tennis is a small world, guys. And so we need all the attention we can get, however we can get it. That's just my opinion. Then don't make a statement that involves mental health issue that all players go through and not offer any helpful solutions. If it's this bad to her to take mental health at this time, share it or something like that. So basically saying, take it another step forward. Yeah, this is all about, this is, her sister made a statement and then she retracted her statement. She basically said that this is really about one of her family members. So if you want to know where this came from, one of Naomi Osaka's family members, maybe to her or she heard about, said that Naomi's not good on clay. And so it got to her that one of her family members kind of said she sucks on clay. And then she started to imagine, you know, sometimes we make a mountain out of a molehill. She started to imagine that what if she starts to do these pressers and doesn't play well on clay, but barely wins. And then I ask her about how comfortable is she on clay, or maybe she hasn't done well on clay, or why don't you like clay? And then this could start to open up a whole can of negative thoughts in her mind that are going to keep her from trying to win the French Open. So she came up with a very immature solution. I think that's a good way to describe Naomi Osaka. At times she appears to be, and she is young too, she appears to be immature. And so I think in an immature reaction, she came up with the idea, aha, I just won't do it. I won't go to the press. Then they can't ask me about clay or how I'm playing or how my state of mind is, that I'm already feeling weak at. And also when you think about it, you know, this is not good for people's mental health. So then she made it bigger than herself by tagging the mental health issue with it. And I think it was all a contrived thing that was kind of immature, but is opening up a big issue. Because I bet you there's lots of players who are jealous of Naomi right now going, well, damn, if she doesn't get defaulted, and is this going to pay $15,000? I mean, what if the French Open didn't default her? She doesn't do press. She goes through the entire tournament and wins it, pays $15,000 fines the entire tournament. She wins it. She wins the prize money. And then she gets all this attention without having to do press. And then she'll probably even get even more sponsors. And then they'll probably even make like a Nike commercial, like, just do it your way or whatever. I mean, if I were a player, I would be so pissed off. So this is the main reason why I think Naomi Osaka shouldn't be allowed to get away with this. Because if I'm a player, I'm going, this is definitely not fair. This is not fair at all. I have to do my presses. I don't have $15,000 a match. When I lose, I go in there, I suck it up. Think about how many women could go, I've had to go in and answer questions about what it's like to play Naomi Osaka and how awesome is Naomi Osaka. You don't think that messes with your mind for the next time you got to go play Naomi Osaka? That's not fair if you want to go in Naomi's head, right? If you want to jump into Naomi's world, that's not fair to have to deal with that. That will mess with your mental health to have to answer questions. What's like to play the great Naomi Osaka, right? I mean, think about all these players. They have to ask, what's it like to play Roger Federer? He's so amazing. What's it like to play Novak Djokovic? He's unbelievable. He's unbeatable, right? I mean, how are you going to beat that person next time you go play them? Okay, let's see. Let's see what you guys have said. If you leave it to the player, they may never engage with fans. The pressers help get coverage and recoup money. Well, that's interesting, George. One thing that's interesting is stars like being stars. COVID really showed us that too. They can talk all they want about the media, but tennis players like being stars. And we saw that during COVID. When there was no tennis, what happened? Andy Murray, Roger Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, they all got on social media all the time wanting attention. They interviewed each other, so if you got rid of pressers, they would still do social media. They would still do social media, trust me. She is a tennis player. The rest is not important in the big picture. That's not true. I mean, let's say there was no social media. There was no solution other than the press. Well, then this would be 100%. She has to do the press. I mean, tennis wouldn't survive without fans. Tennis would not survive without some sort of media, whether it's the press or whether now it's social media. You need coverage. Otherwise, you're just somebody playing. You're just a really good player playing on a recreational court, okay? Without fans, without press. So you need to promote your sport. So I definitely don't think you should be allowed to not do press and then you don't have to do. I mean, you have to do something. Long term, if it turns out that you take your phone and you interview yourself, in some ways, I kind of like that idea. But you got to do something to promote the game. You don't get to make millions and millions of dollars and get off 100% scot-free. That is BS. And right now, that's what Naomi is trying to do. So she might have opened up a long-term solution for the players with, hey, get on your phone, interview yourself. I like that idea. But in the short term, the press is still a big part of tennis. Tennis needs the press. Naomi needs to do her press or be defaulted, period. So my vote is she has to be defaulted. She has got to be defaulted. You can't keep saying, you better watch it, Naomi. We're going to default you. You better watch it. If you don't do this next match, we're going to default you. And then all of a sudden she goes all the way to the finals. You can't let it go to the finals. What are you going to do? Default her in the finals? Like if the French Open is serious, they need to default her in the first, second, or third round. They cannot let her get to the quarters or semis when the matches get so big and more people want to tune in to watch it. You want to see, Naomi play Serena or another big name or Ash Barty, and then you default her in that. That's not fair to the fans. So you better default her while she's going to go play some nobody. Now, that would be fair to that player. If she's going to play somebody that she's got a 90% chance of beating, and you let that player get the prize money and go to another round, that's fair. But it's not fair to let her go all the way to the quarters or the semifinals and then default her, because then that robs everybody. That robs tennis. That robs, everybody wanting to cover the match and watch the match. So you got to do it soon, French Open. And I think that they need to default her. You can't keep threatening her and keep trying to, call her on her hotel room and see, like, is she going to do it tomorrow? Is she going to do it tomorrow? I hope she really shows up. Like, you got to just nip it in the bud. Roger Federer is probably not going to win the French Open. Is he going to duck the press? Of course he won't. He'll address the worldwide media in a language used by the specific question. Yeah, I mean, obviously. I mean, everybody, I think most tennis players, if you ask them, especially the veterans, right? It's a new world, right? So the veterans who are a little more old school, like, the press is the press. I've been doing the press since I'm 17 years old. Nadal's been doing press since he's 17 years old. He doesn't understand Naomi Osaka. He's like, look, it's part of the game. Like, grow up. But players in their early 20s are probably looking at the phone going, I've got like 10 bazillion followers on Instagram. Why do I need to do press? Why can't I just talk to my phone? Why can't I talk to my fans? So I think going into the future and the mentality of, young people, it might become a thing that we're not doing press. I think it needs to be a stand like, the players did back in the day when they as a unit decided to boycott. They decided to boycott Wimbledon, like in the 70s. It needs to be a team effort for it to be legitimized. You can't do this unilaterally. And I don't think it's that big an issue to where it really needs to be one of the main things that we stand up to, So in my mind, Naomi, I hope she talks to the French Open. Maybe they can come up with a list of things that she's not going to talk about. Just don't ask her that. And she sucks it up and she goes and does her press. That would be the best. If she's not going to do it, you got to default her. You have got to default her, and you got to do it soon. And really, we'll know very, very soon how serious the French Open is about defaulting her. And if they don't default her in the next 2 rounds, they're going to be making a big mistake because they're not going to do it right then. Because then they're either going to do it later in the tournament where it really is a shitty time to do it, or they're not going to do it at all, and they're going to set a precedent. Then Naomi will have gotten away with it, especially if she went all the way. Imagine if she wins the tournament and she only has to pay fines. Then my idea might be coming around the corner a lot faster than people are ready for. Yeah. Have the players interview each other. Well, yeah, but they don't want to. I mean, that's again, now you're asking for more time commitment. I think if we're going to let them know, says Ira. I think Ira from Essential Tennis, I loved watching it with Ian the other day. But yeah, I mean, I think the easiest solution, least amount of manpower, which the players would probably be most comfortable on, is they just hit their phone and they just start talking. And then the press can pick up that clip and they can do whatever they want with it. I'm kind of fine with that. But make no mistake about it. Naomi Osaka needs to be defaulted right now. It shouldn't be a debate. They shouldn't let Naomi Osaka hold the tournament hostage. You can't let, I mean, the next player that's got to play her now all of a sudden is having to go through this mental anguish. She wants to talk about mental health. What about the mental anguish she's putting her next opponent from, where that player's wondering, am I going to play Naomi? Am I not going to play Naomi? How weird is it going to be? Are they going to default her? That's taking mental energy away from her opponent, right? That's affecting her next opponent's mental health. So the French Open needs to put their money where their mouth is and say, because they made it sound like it's going to go in stages. The fines are going to get heftier, and eventually you might face default. Well, if it's going to be written that way, that lets me know if I'm Naomi Osaka, I've got at least 5 to 6 matches before you're really going to get serious about this. So I'll just keep paying the fines. And then, it's a big mistake to default her in the quarters, semis, or finals. Even the round of 16, even the round of 32. You got to default her right now. Right now, today. You got to default her. Naomi, I like you, and I like that you brought this up. You may have brought up a thing that in the future, don't be surprised in 5-10 years, this is how they do their interview. Okay? But for right now, the press is still important. The press needs to be respected, and Naomi Osaka needs to step up and fulfill her duties. And if they don't, then the French Open needs to step up and fulfill their duty and put their money where their mouth is and default her right now. They don't need to be debating about this. They don't need to be calling her on the phone every 10 minutes begging her to do a press conference and see if she's going to do it. They need to just step up. And that is my opinion. So if you like this, guys, if you like this little debate, let me know. And leave a comment below if you're watching the replay. And yeah, I guess the questions are that I want you to answer in the comment section if you watch the replay is A, should they default Naomi Osaka? My vote is yes. B, would a long-term solution and fix to this be the players just interview themselves? And would that be better or worse than the press? I personally think if you put the phone in front of Nick Kyrgios for 2 minutes after he loses the match, it might be way more entertaining than him going to answer a press conference. That's my opinion. I think long-term, I would actually like to see this involved. But let me know. Let's see. I'll just read a couple more. Rule is a rule. She earned $55 million last year, so she can do anything she wants. If she doesn't earn that much money, would she want to skip the press? ? Yeah. Default someone for not talking to you, that's insane. That isn't insane. Because everybody else has to do it. It's not insane. She should be defaulted. Because then it's the press conference, guys, is part of the tournament. These players have to plan their day around I won or I lost. Now I've got to hop in the shower. I got to go do press, right? And a lot of times they do more press than, they got to do like the on-court interview. They've got to then do the press conference. Then there's usually other little events that they usually have to go to behind the scenes. If you take all that away and the players who want to do it, and the players who don't, that's not fair. Not even that they want. The player's powerful enough not to do it, get away with it. It's not fair. It's not a fair playing ground. And that's what the French Open pointed out. I'm just here so I don't get fined. That's what Marshawn, yeah, that's right. Iris said, she could pull a Marshawn Lynch. That would actually be pretty funny, her doing her impression of Marshawn Lynch. Marshawn Lynch during the Super Bowl, his press conference, all he said is, I'm just here so I don't get fined. I'm just here so I don't get fined. And again, it was annoying, but we all remember it. So was it good for football? My vote is yes. Agreed. Default. Sad situation, but necessary. Not a good idea to have players control the message, says Christopher. So is it a good idea to have the press control the message? Whether you are a liberal or a conservative or whatever, is it a good idea for the press to always be controlling the message? Do they do a really good job? Are they in the best interest of the people? I don't think so. I don't think so. Is being interviewed a requirement? Yes, it is. It is part of their contract, and she should honor it, and she should do it. I think she should. I think if I were Naomi Osaka, I would say, you know what? I've thought about it. It's not fair. This would be the best thing she could do. It's not fair to my opponent that I'm creating all this attention because this is affecting their mental health. It's not fair to the rest of the players who don't have the money to just get fined, the more I think about it. So I will do my press conferences, but I am going to open up a long-term debate and with a solution that I think we should just be allowed to use their phone if she likes my idea. Naomi, if you like my idea, there's your solution right there, okay? But if you're not going to come up with any solutions, just go and do the damn press conference or get defaulted. That's my opinion. The tough questions need to be asked and they need to be answered. Do they? Do they really though? Especially because some of those questions are just like, have you ever, there's so many annoying people in the press. And to me, some of them cross the line and, you almost feel like I'm not even in the match. And sometimes I've watched a press conference going, I wish I could punch that interviewer in the face. They're just a complete jerk. They're stepping over the line. They're totally pushing buttons, Did I just get $10? What? Okay, I got my first super chat. I've never had this before. You guys are awesome. If anybody else wants to give me $10, I love you long time. Okay, so the Chief of Beef, first of all, great handle. How can dealing with the press be more difficult than dealing with the pressure of being on court playing to full stadiums of millions of viewers. Pressure is a privilege. Billie Jean King. Okay, pulling out the Billie Jean Queen quote. That's true. Pressure is a privilege, and I think it's a privilege that you get to get on the tour and you should do your press. But it can affect your mental toughness. These players are a lot more fragile. It's weird. They're a lot tougher and they're a lot more fragile than you think. Tennis is a mental game. And if you feel vulnerable in some aspect, like she does not feel confident on clay, Naomi's not doing this for one simple reason, guys, in case you haven't seen. Naomi's not doing the presses because she does not want to answer questions about how she's not good on clay, because she feels that that will get in her head. That might affect her performance on clay. That might put doubt in her mind. That's why she's making this big stand. There's no big grand, reason behind it. It's just as simple as that. And then she's thought about all the other examples where players have broken down on the press conference podium, and she's kind of tied it and wrapped her issue into all these other issues. Face it, press ask idiotic questions. Yes, they do. Naomi isn't bigger than tennis. Respect the game. Yes, I mean, tennis needs stars, but one thing if sports has taught us anything, there's always a new star around the corner. So Naomi, you're not bigger than the game. You are, though, making tennis bigger than it normally is. So what you're doing is actually good for tennis. But I do think that she should do a 180 and turn right around and say, guys, I've thought about it. I'm going to do my press conferences. Not everybody can afford to pay $15,000. It's not fair to my fellow competitors that I get to, have an extra hour, 2 hours of doing whatever the hell I want, and they got to go do press. It's not fair to all my opponents who are probably going to have to go into the, I'm sure the person who won and is going to their press conference and has to play Naomi, and if it hasn't happened yet, trust me, it will happen, because the media loves to stir crap up. They will ask her competitors, hey, what do you think do you think it's fair that you're having to do this press conference, but your competitor, Naomi Osaka, your next opponent, isn't doing it? Do you think that's fair? Trust me, those questions are coming if they haven't already come. Let's see. Naomi will be playing it at Africa Open next. Is she playing Africa Open? What would happen if she did a Marshawn Lynch? I don't know. I just think she should just woman up and say, you know what? I've thought about it. I'm going to do the presses. That is really the mature thing to do. That is the mature and the right thing to do. She is acting like a diva. Michael says she's acting like an entitled princess diva status who can write her own rules. That is, no matter what she is coming across and saying her cause is, that's all it boils down to, guys. She is making a complete power play, and she's saying, I'm not going to do it. If you don't like it, find me. And I have enough money to where it doesn't bother me. That's what she's doing. And so the French Open's got to step up. They got to step up and default her. I don't think Naomi should not be doing press conferences at Grand Slam tournaments. Yeah. So I think we all agree. Naomi needs to step up, or the French Open needs to step up. You can't have you can't have Naomi playing a game of chicken and the French Open playing a game of chicken. It's going to blow up. It's not going to be good. It's not going to be good if this thing comes to a head in the quarters, semis, or finals. And if it never comes to a head, it still comes to a head. So if the French Open ultimately does nothing but fine her, if she goes all the damn way and wins this thing, French Open's lost and she's won. Okay? How can Naomi win and get out of this? How can she end up being right? Is if the French Open lets her go the whole way and just fines her. Even if they start fining her $1 million a match, she's like, here, I make $55 million. Here's $1 million. Go give it to mental health, right? And she wins the tournament. Naomi Osaka wins this battle. So they absolutely have to step up and default her. Otherwise, she wins. Bjorn Borg fought with the ITF in 1982. How did that turn out? This isn't the ITF first rodeo. I mean, Borg, now, speaking of that, though, Borg, his last U.S. Open, he lost to McEnroe. He didn't even stay. He didn't even stay for the press. Somebody, how could you get more mentally tough than Borg? Borg, after he lost to McEnroe at the US Open, walked off the court and never came back, just got in his car. So obviously dealing with the press isn't as easy as we think it is, because Borg just did I'm out of here. And, he won 5 Wimbledons and 6 French Opens, and won them almost every single year. I know he won 5 Wimbledons in a row. How about she pays the fine of another player that doesn't want to do the press? Then she's opened up a whole new can of worms. Then it becomes a movement. I mean, if she comes out on her little Instagram and says, I'll pay anybody who's fine who isn't going to do a press conference, then she has started an official movement. And if other players start to go, okay, all of a sudden, if you see 10, 20, 30 players going, okay, Naomi, pay my fine, I'm not going to do the press, then all of a sudden this thing's not going away. So that's how it becomes a movement, Mark Davis. Good question. That's how it becomes a movement. Well, we've got 110 people on right now, so I will ask you guys before I leave, if you have not had a chance to weigh in one more time. Should Naomi Osaka be defaulted for not doing pressers, or does she have a legit gripe? Do we need the press? Do we need the press? Are they a necessary part of the game? Is it a necessary part of her obligation? Would you compare this to Novak at the US Open's default? I think it's different. I mean, Novak regretted it right away. I mean, Novak hit the lines person, said he was sorry, knew he made a mistake, argued a little bit about being defaulted, but then ultimately, did the right thing and said, I lost it. And those are the rules. So, I mean, Novak should have got defaulted. So that's it. I mean, they did the right thing. Put up or shut up, says Mark Davis. Yes, default her. She has no priority over others. Default. Tennis don't need her, says Eric. I think ultimately tennis will survive without her, but we need stars. She's a star. We need stars, guys. We need stars. So I think Naomi ultimately is good for the game. Even if you don't like her, that's good. At least you have an opinion on her. I could probably name 50 ATP and WTA players right now. I could pull out the top 100 list, and I'd say, what do you think of this person? What do you think of this player? And so many people on here who love tennis probably go, nothing. I think nothing of them. I don't know. I don't know them. I don't know enough about them. I don't care. I guess they're okay. So the fact that we're on here talking about Naomi Osaka and some people are going to defend her and other people hate her, that's good for tennis. Sorry. Should be defaulted. Djokovic, GOAT. I agree. Djokovic, GOAT. Tennis definitely needs her, LOL. Stars are mentally tough. Yes, she's mentally tough. I mean, to say that she's just not mentally tough is not right either, because I think she's mentally tough, but she's immature. You can be immature and be mentally tough, guys. I think she's immature, but she's mentally tough. She has played some huge matches under huge pressure, and she's a money player. She wins almost all of those matches. So she is mentally tough, but she is immature, okay? She might be more immature than her age. I mean, she's young. By definition, she's what, 21, 22? So she's immature, Any 21, 22-year-old, most of them are immature. But I think even for her age, she might be a little immature. Yes, she should. We need the press. We all have to follow rules. Naomi Osaka, dry the tears and get with the program. I love Naomi, but stardom has gone to her head. I mean, again, I don't even know if maybe stardom has gone to her head. I think she just I think she was looking for a solution of, I don't want to do these pressers because I don't want to get into my head about the clay. I think she's very, very vulnerable about her confidence. And it just popped into her head, said, I've got an idea. I won't do the press conferences. Then no one can talk about how bad I am on clay. Then I can keep my confidence going. Yeah, maybe she could use this as a platform to speak about mental illness. She could, but then I think it becomes contrived, Ira, because I don't think this is about her being mentally ill. I think this is about her being a little shaken in her confidence. And therefore, she came up with this whole idea. I don't think it's a very big, well put together thought process. I don't think that it was very well put together, very well thought out. I think she just decided, you know what? I don't like doing press. I'm not going to do it, and I don't want them to ask me about the clay. Because that's what her sister alluded to. Let me find her sister's comment here. So I'm going to read. I won't share the screen because I want to. Naomi, this is Naomi's sister. Okay, Naomi mentioned to me before the tournament that a family member came to her and remarked that she's bad at clay. This is Mari who wrote this. At every press conference, she's told she has a bad record on clay. When she lost in Rome, she was not okay mentally. Her confidence was completely shattered, and I think that everyone's remarks and opinions have gotten in her head, and she's believed that she's bad on clay. That's all this is about. I mean, can you call that a mental health issue? I don't know. I think it's fragility. I think it's immaturity. I don't know if it's a mental health issue. I mean, I have lots of things that I'm very self-conscious on. I feel much more comfortable slicing the backhand than I hit topspin. I'm sure if I'm out there hitting topspin before a match with my one-hand backhand and somebody said, hey, Pete, your one-handed backhand sucks. Good luck in your match today. Would that be a mental health issue I have? I mean, or just like a lack of confidence in a backhand, which so many people have, So I don't know if it's a mental health issue. Okay, it's her choice. Yeah, it's her choice because she's got the money. So it's not just as simple as saying, it's her choice, guys. She can do what she wants because other players can't afford to get $15,000 every single match. So it's not really her choice. It's her choice because she's put herself in a position where she makes $55 million a year. So it's not fair to the other players. I don't think it's fair what she's doing. If press conferences are critical, the change contract failure to comply for Osaka, fine is chump change. Yeah, it's chump change. True lack of confidence is not mental illness at all, says Al. I agree. And I think that's what it is. It's just lack of confidence on clay. That's not a mental health issue. There's a difference, right? No, I suppose granting an interview or comments to the press should be optional. Should be something optional. Yeah, but at this point, it's not. That's a debate for a longer term, guys. Okay? At this point, it's not an option. If it were an option, players could pick and choose. It's not an option. It's in the contract. If you don't do it, you're going to get fined. So it's not an option. She's choosing to make it her option. But it's not an option for somebody who's struggling, right? Barely covers their expenses on the tour. It's not an option for them. So I don't think Naomi should be allowed to do this. This is about who is in charge, the ITF or Osaka. I agree with that, Michael Walker. There are rules, right? Just follow the rules. Rules, to be clear. She should be allowed to exercise her rights. Well, I think she should be allowed to exercise her rights, but I think there's consequences to that. You can't just say, well, you should be allowed to exercise your rights and there's zero consequences. There are consequences to what she's doing. The consequence should be she should be defaulted. And if she's willing to do that, then she can continue to talk about this issue. She can choose to say, I'm never doing a press conference again. If that means I'm out of Wimbledon, then I'm out of Wimbledon. If that means I'm out of the US Open, I'm out of the US Open until this is changed. If it's that big an issue for her, that's the stand she'll have to make. If it's not that big an issue for her, do your press conference. And if she's not going to do it, the French Open needs to default her. Okay, guys, I got to get ready to go teach tennis. I'm out. I hope you guys enjoyed this live stream. Like it up, smash the like button, subscribe. We'll see you guys later.